everyone, it's Jenny at JC Cards, and I'm excited because today I'm pairing up with my good friend Ardyth. We're both bringing you videos sharing some tips and tricks for creating birthday cards. Both of our birthdays are in May, hers a little after mine, and so we thought it'd be fun to celebrate in this way. I was inspired to create this card today, and I'll show you how I made it. I was able to spend some birthday money and give myself a little birthday gift by purchasing some Pigment Craft Company goodies. Now, if you're not familiar with the Pigment Craft Company, they are a relatively new company, started only a couple of months ago, and they just have beautiful florals with coordinating dies and stencils and really, really gorgeous sentiment sets with beautiful fonts. And I treated myself. The company is actually created by my good friend Ivana, and I would love for you to go check them out. I've left the link to all the supplies I'm going to use today in the description box below, as well as a link over to Ardyth's video. So I'm just showing you the products I'm going to be using to create my card. These are the Blooming Floral set, the die, the stencil, and the stamp is what I'm going to be using today. And then I'm also going to be using a sentiment set called the Dashing Sentiments, the die and stamp set. Now, to start my card, I'm taking a panel of white cardstock and I'm going to ink up my stamp. This is the main floral from the set, and I'm inking it up in Pinkfresh Studio dye ink in Metropolis. This is not a black ink, it is a very pale sort of warm grey colour, and I think it's really nice to do ink blending over the top of, particularly for more softer images like the floral. Now, it comes with a coordinating stencil that you can use to colour it in. You might be familiar with layering stencils. It's very similar. This one, it all comes on one piece and you can follow the pieces and work out which ones to use when, because they're numbered and lettered. So it's really straightforward and simple to use, and you just move that stencil around. I'm adhering my stencil to my Wendy Vecchi Make Art, I think it's called a station. It's magnetic, and you use these large magnets and you can connect the paper and the stencil so it holds it in place really firmly, which is just fantastic. I bought this maybe 6 months ago and I love it for ink blending with stencils. Absolutely brilliant. I've also protected my cardstock a little bit around the outer edge of my stencil just to make sure that I don't ink blend off that edge and create mark where I don't want it. I'm using some tape. This is from Spellbinders. I recently got it as part of my guest design spots that I do, and so I didn't purchase it. However, it is the greatest tape I've ever used. It's thin and sticky, and yet it doesn't rip the paper. So when you use it to adhere dies and things like that, it doesn't make a mark on the paper when you run it through your die cutting machine. It's amazing. Highly recommend it. So anyway, back to the blending. I'm using these little ink dauber blending tools from Spectrum Noir. They come in a little box, and I bought these because I have so many different ink colours now. I'm running out of ink blending tools and I don't like to keep washing them. So I bought this, I thought I need some more, and they're so handy for detailed blending. And so what I do is I just slip them over my finger and I use them to sort of ink up each area, as you've seen I've been doing here. So starting with some sunshine ink, and then I'll come in with another ink dauber with a darker colour and sort of blend in from the edge. I can just angle my finger, pushing in from the edge, and then I can even add a third colour just to give even more depth. And you get this really nice kind of contrast built up just by using these tiny little ink daubers. I know Altenew also recently came out with more detailed ink blending brushes. I don't have those yet. I've really got my eye on them, so I'm hoping to grab some of those soon. But these ink daubers are great for this kind of detailed ink blending. So I've been linking to all of the colours I use in the description box below. I'm also holding them up so you can see each of the colours I'm using. In general, I'm going from light to dark. In some cases, so for example, this Candy Apple, it's really juicy ink pad, and I wanted to use the ink dauber to create that contrast, that kind of almost like ombre look. So I just used that one colour and pushed up from the edge of the stencil and then faded out towards the top of the area that I'm blending. And that way you kind of get a nice fade with just using that one ink colour. So the other colours I've used, I think this one's Coral Reef. I also used Passion Fruit. For the blueberry, I used Slumber, and another colour of blue I've forgotten off the top of my head. But as I say, they'll all be linked below. They're all Pinkfresh Studio dye inks, which are just gorgeous, bright, beautiful colours. And this is a super detailed layering stencil. You'll see that I do keep moving it around because it is just one piece. Unlike other layering stencils, like say the Pinkfresh Studio ones or the Altenew ones, which come in 4 or 5 different pieces, this one is just one piece. And so it's quite handy you just have it out. One recommendation I have is to make sure you clean the stencil before you move it around. I got a little bit of ink in places where I didn't want to because I'd left some ink on the stencil, then I used my dauber and pushed it onto the area. But it's not too much trouble to wipe it off in between. And I also lifted up and removed the masking tape as well. It's not really masking off the rest of that panel. It's just making sure that if I accidentally go over the edge of the plastic, I don't create a big stripe of ink. And it's not too much of a problem. I'm going to be die cutting out this image. Obviously, if you're not going to be die cutting it, you want to really be protecting that area around it. So I use a larger post-it note, for example, you could, or just be extra careful if just using masking tape like here. I'm not using it to adhere down the stencil. This magnetic Wendy Vecchi pad is great. It really keeps everything in one place. So I also like to, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you may be aware, I like to add more detail on top of my ink blending. So I'm using some alcohol markers. These are from Altenew, and I just chose some colours that broadly mirrored the colours of the inks that I'd used. I love the Altenew alcohol markers. I have Copics as well. For some reason, I don't know why, I find these easier to use. I'm not sure if it's the shape of the barrel, I don't know, but I just find them much easier to use, and I like to just use them to add little details here and there. I am not colouring this entire image again by any stretch of the imagination. I've sped it up. You can see which colours I'm using over in the corner, and again I'll link to the sets. I'm only using 2 different sets here, but I just wanted to add some contrast and depth so that it really kind of brought that flower to life a little bit more. And I also used it to just colour over that little ink smudge that I'd accidentally got on the yellow flower from the green leaf. So I just like to add those details in. And then what I'm going to do once I've finished colouring in is to die cut it out with the coordinating die. You'll see I am not being careful here at all. And it's amazing how much contrast and depth you can get just by adding a few scribbles with an alcohol marker over the top of your ink blending. I highly recommend it. Okay, so I am setting aside my flower while I work on my sentiment. I'm using this Happy Day sentiment from the set that I mentioned at the beginning, the Dashing Sentiments. And I'm just using another piece of white cardstock. I'm going to be die cutting it out. Essential tool for your stash over and above this masking tape that I mentioned is this Altenew stamp conditioner. You might think, well, why do I need one of those? It's brilliant. It's genius. It's genius. You can use a normal eraser. For some reason, this one works a little better. It's really bendy. You just rub it over solid stamps, and it creates a surface that the ink grips to. I've not used these stamps before, and it stamped perfectly after I'd used it. So I stamped it down with, I think that was Coral Reef. Stamped it twice. Usually you wouldn't need to, but I wanted to do an ombre ink colour. So I added another ink at the bottom and then stamped over the top the Coral Reef again. And you'll see that it gets that lovely flow of deep pink into that Coral Reef. Now I wanted to make my die cut a little sturdier, so I did die cut it again from £110 Nina Solar White, and I'm going to adhere them together using my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. Now, for those of you who've watched my videos, you know that I love my art glitter glue. You can't find a better glue, I thought. The Barely Art glue is very similar. It dries clear. It's got a fine tip included with it. It has an extra long pin. I've recommended the art glitter glue to literally everyone I know. I found it out from Stamp Junkies, but this one I think is just a little better. I'm sorry. Here's another tip for you. How do you know which colours to mount your images onto? Do you use a white card base? I sometimes like to have a coloured cardstock base, and I keep a stash of multicoloured cardstock next to me. This one's from the Stamp Market. I've also used Concord and Ninth, my favourite things, Altenew. I just keep a big multicoloured stash next to me and grab one. I like to kind of fan it out and then overlay my images over the top and see which one works best. So I've grabbed this kind of pale, I guess it's greyish, I'm not quite sure what the colour is, and I've dry embossed it. I used, I think it's called the Enchanting Vines 3D embossing folder from Altenew. It was one of their releases recently, and it's gorgeous. The depth you get on it, just love it. And to bring it out a little bit more, I've used my Antique Gold Pigment ink, which you just very lightly run it over the top, turn around the cardstock rather than turning the ink pad, and you get all the tops of all of the embossed areas touched with gold, and it just looks really, really pretty. I've mounted it with foam tape onto a note card, and then I'm going to adhere my sentiment and my flowers. And another tip, these are my favourite foam squares. They are from Scrapbook Adhesives. They're 2mm thick. You don't have to rip them off. They stick really well. I've just have used them for so long now, and I buy them in big bulk packs. So as soon as I run out of them, which is probably like once every 6 months, I buy some more, but they're amazing. And then finally, to finish, I am using some sequins from Catherine Pooler. Probably my favourite range of sequins. This is one of the colours I use a lot. I like the fact that I can tip them into the little lid and pick them up with my jewel picker. And I think I have literally every set of Catherine Pooler sequins. They go with every card I make. And that pretty much finishes the card. You'll see I added some gold gel pen touches into the flower centres to coordinate with that dry embossed background. Now, if you want to wish me a happy birthday or leave me a comment or Ardyth a comment, please feel free to do so in the comments below. And I have a prize up for grabs. If you listened all the way to the end, leave me a comment and I'll be giving away a $25 gift voucher to a craft company picked at random from the comments left on this video. I do hope you've enjoyed, and I gave you some tips and maybe some good ideas for what you can ask for your birthday when it comes around. To all my crafty friends, I hope you're having a safe and happy time, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.